Europe and Britain 10,000 years ago. Not what we would have expected. 1, 2, 3, come on! Spark to it. I'm a research leader in human origins at the Natural History Museum in London. I'm holding here this wonderful reconstructed head of Cheddar Man. I've been studying the skeleton of Cheddar Man for some 40 years or so. And now with DNA technology, we've got the whole genome of Cheddar Man. Here we've got a scientific reconstruction of what he looked like. We've got his hair form, his skin, his blue eyes, and that dark skin colour, that combination really striking. And getting out of here information about his biology, the fact that, for example, he couldn't digest milk because that came in with the advent of farming after the time of Cheddar Man. So we're getting his whole biology, how he relates to people in Europe at the time, and how he relates to people in Britain.
Greetings. Greetings. This is Archbishop Belmont from the Noble House of Belmont. And I'm coming to you, brothers and sisters, again today with another quick, beautiful lesson from the Third Temple English Church of England. And that video I just showed was pretty much just a quick snippet regarding the information for those who like to utilize DNA as the source or references for their claim regarding ancestry or who they are going back to a specific time and era in history. Now, reason why I like about the Cheddar Man video is because they're giving you an idea of the complexion and the skin tone of the Anglo-Saxon people back during a certain time and era. Now, we don't really want to get caught up in the dates, things of that nature, because the calendar dates can be off, especially if you're utilizing the Gregorian calendar. Now, what I do want to show is I'm going to read an article from the National Geographic explaining the same thing, but this time the reconstruction of the face of so-called English people. And the beautiful part about this one is it's actually a melanated sister. So let me go ahead and share this for you, because the whole purpose of this video is to really try to show the so-called Black, brown, Negro, African-American, colored, whatever you want to erroneously call her today in so-called America, even though she's an Anglo-Saxon Berber. She needs to know this information. She needs to know who she is. And this may not be the best reconstruction, but you must, follow what they're trying to present to you. They're giving you the identity, or at least the complexion of the people at this time in England. So we're going to go ahead and read this. Just go ahead and show you another picture of her. Just take a look. Somebody probably today who looks like her. All right. It says White Hawk woman. Small and slender White Hawk woman lived about 5,600 years ago and died before the age of 25, possibly during childbirth. The remains of a fetus were found in her pelvic area. She was excavated in 1933 from a burial in a White Hawk enclosure, one of Britain's earliest Neolithic monuments. Recent DNA analysis from the Neolithic White Hawk population suggests they were generally dark-eyed and dark-skinned in comparison to the Beaker population that eventually replaced them around 4,400 years ago. And the Beaker population people were dark-skinned too. But like I said, the point And like I said, and the title of this article is called "These Facial Reconstructions Reveal 40,000 Years of English Ancestry." And as the UK wrestles, which is the United Kingdom, wrestles with issues of identity and nationalism around Brexit, a new exhibit is putting fresh faces on the region's ancient residents. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go far into this article because you'll get lost in trying to figure out all the other jazz. I like to go straight to the main point. All right, so it says, this was published January 24th, 2019. So this information has been out here for a very long time. It just goes over our brothers and sisters' heads who need to know this. But it says, last year, the dark-skinned, blue-eyed facial reconstruction of Cheddar Man, that was the video we just showed, a 10,000-year-old British resident made international headlines and sparked discussions about Native identity in a nation grappling with Brexit and issues of migration. Now, a new exhibit is revealing the faces of 7 more ancient locals from the coast of southern England. And science is confirming that the history of the region is much more complicated than once thought. Now, that complication is because the people, the original natives of this location, England, what they call England over there, were actually melanated people, or dark brown or so-called black people. I don't like to use those terms to reference who we are. Like I said, we're English people, and they just call us these color codes or crayons for identification purposes, but you should not identify as your skin complexion. You have to identify as the nation that you come from. And the nation you come from could be found based off of your surname and your surname origins. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and go to, this is back Thomas William Shore. Origin of the Anglo-Saxon Race, Our Darker Forefathers, Chapter 7. I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit on here so that way brothers and sisters can follow along. Now remember, this book was published in the early 1900s, like 1906, if I'm not mistaken. And they're telling you in 2019 about the complexion or who the people were in England. All right, so these are 2 sources. This is one from academia. Like I say, he's an anthropologist. And then the other source is from so-called DNA. So that's 2 sources that the people today will take credentials as proof or valid. And then the third was legislation, which we've shown here on the King's Bench, to verify based off of this information on who the people were and who their descendants are today. Now, I'm not going to come in and talk about why you lost it. We're going to do another video about that because I want you to know that there has been a war taking place within your own family who were sellouts, who caused you to not know this information, who can teach it to you, but the oaths that they took in their fraternities, sororities, lodges, whatever, is keeping them from saying this. All right, so let me go ahead and get started with this book, page 112, and it says, among all old place names of the same kind in various counties, some of which are met with and later, but still old records, we find Blackney in Gloucestershire, Blackney in Norfolk, Blackenham in Suffolk, Blackmere, an ancient hamlet, and Blackswear near Ware in Hertfordshire. This Hertford name is worthy of note in reference to what has been said concerning the brunettes, that's brown, in that county at the present time. Another circumstance connected with these names, which it is desirable to remember, is the absence of evidence to show that the Old English ever called any of the darker complexion Brightons, brown men, or black men. All right, now, once again, this is outsiders who would normally call us by our complexions, like how we see today. Their name for them was Wealis. So far as I'm aware, not a single instance occurs in which the Welsh are mentioned in any Anglo-Saxon document as black or brown people. On the contrary, the Welsh annals mention black Vikings on the coast as if they were men of unusual personal appearance. All right. And then we get down, there's another word used, there's another old word used by the Anglo-Saxons to denote black or brown, black. The word swart. The personal names Seward and Sewart may have been derived from this old word and may have originally denoted people of a dark brown or black complexion. Once again, like I spoke last video, that's how the name Stuart also means black brown or black complexion. And King James from the House of Stuart, he was a Roman Catholic who descended from the Kingdom of Scotland. Okay. Some names of this kind are mentioned in the Domesday record of Buckinghamshire and Lincolnshire. These may be of Scandinavian origin for the eponym or nickname. Swarthy is found in the Northern sagas. Halfdan the Black was the name of King of Norway who died in 863. The so-called black men of the Anglo-Saxon period probably included some of the darker Wendish people among them. So there you go. They're telling you the dark or the black men of Anglo-Saxon period. These Anglo-Saxons were us. All right, immigrants or descendants of people of the same race as ancestors of the Sorbs or Lusatia on the borders of Saxony and Prussia at the present day. Some of the darker winds may have been among the black Vikings referred to in Irish annals, as well as those of Wales, and may have been the people who have left the Anglo-Saxon name Blackmanburg, which occurs in one of the charters, Blackmanstone on the Kentish coast and Blackmanstone on the Dorset coast. As late as the time of Domesday survey, we meet with records of people apparently named after their dark complexions. There you go. So once again, place names they were using back at this time was a representation of the complexion of the people or the inhabitants who lived there. And in this case, the so-called black and brown people. All right. And so you can read the rest of this on your own time. But for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and get to the next part of this lesson. Go ahead and talk about the Kingdom of England. Now that we're telling you the description of those people, dark, black, or brown, whatever. And now the history of the Kingdom of England, time, 927 to 1707. And the reason what happened in 1707 was the Acts of Union, all right, which pretty much put our people to sleep, all right. First monarch, as it says, King Ethelstan. Do you see King Ethelstan? Melanated brother, and you can't say he wasn't melanated because the documentation we just proved, we're telling you that these people were dark, so-called dark black or dark brown. All right. And this is King Ethelstan, who was also the Emperor of Albion, Impor Albionis. Okay.
That's a lizard over there.
Yeah, there's a lizard over there.
Why are you with the shield?
All right, so it said the Kingdom of England was a sovereign state on the island of Great Britain from July 12, 927, when it emerged from various Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, until May 1st, 1707, when it united with Scotland to form the Kingdom of Great Britain. The Kingdom of England was among the most powerful states in Europe during the medieval period. On July 12, 927, the various Anglo-Saxon kingdoms were united by King Ethelstan to form the Kingdom of England. In 1016, the kingdom became part of the North Sea Empire of Canute the Great, a personal union between England, Denmark, and Norway. The Norman conquest of England in 1066, that was done by William the Conqueror, led to the transfer of the English capital city and chief royal residence from the Anglo-Saxon one at Winchester to Westminster, and the city of London quickly established itself as English largest principal commercial center. Okay, and then you can read the rest of this on your own. We already know our history. Well, you should know it, but for those who don't know it, go ahead and check it out. The point of this was just to let you know and see King Ethelstan, his complexion, and the year 1707. Now the last so-called the last monarch at this time in 1707 was Queen Anne. And Queen Anne was the last descendant from the House of Stuart. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get to the next part. New Jersey Constitution, 1776, because brothers and sisters are going to once again are going to keep being confused, not knowing that this is still the Kingdom of England. Now, New Jersey is supposed to be so-called considered a state today, but during this time, 1707 and prior, It was underneath the occupation of the British colonies as a vassal of Great Britain. Now, we know New Jersey goes before so-called before Great Britain, because it was underneath the ownership of the kings of England. And we also know that at the time, it was not called New Jersey, it was called Jersey. Anciently, Jersey was also called Albion or Albania or New Caesar. Okay, so we're going to go straight to the most important articles or sections of this 1776 New Jersey Constitution, which is our Constitution. And it says in Article 22, Article 22 says that the common law of England, as well as so much of the statute law. Now remember, the common law of England, and it shows you time in England goes back to what year? 927. So we're talking about all the way at least to 927, but time immemorial is 1189. So we don't even have to go to 927. But just for the sake of the conversation, we're going to say 927. Okay. All right. So the common law of England, as well as so much of the statute law as have been heretofore practiced in this colony, shall still remain in force until they shall be altered by a future law. Altered does not mean removed. It just means changed. So until they should be altered by a future law of the legislator, such parts only accepted as are repugnant. Repugnant means in conflict to the rights and privileges contained in this charter, and the inestimable right of trial by jury shall remain confirmed as part of this law of the colony without repeal forever. All right. So you all know what forever means. And that means that even still and just to verify that how this is still going down, because you need to know that Great Britain, or the reconciliation of the colonies in Great Britain, took place. How do we know? It's Title 16, colon 1-28, saving the rights given and charges by Great Britain, and as well as the Article 1, Section 10 of the so-called United States Contract Clause, which states that all contracts created before the creation of this so-called Constitution are still valid. And that was pretty much speaking regarding the Dartmouth versus Woodward case, when it says that all charters that was given by Great Britain or underneath the British colonies have not been repealed because of the so-called revolution. So that means that all of the so-called charters that Great Britain had, and all of their charters pretty much utilized via the rights of the English people. Because remember, Great Britain only took place because of the Kingdom of Scotland. Kingdom of Scotland only took place, or it got its name because of the Roman Catholics, because before it was called Kingdom of Scotland, it was called the Kingdom of Alba. And Kingdom of Alba was just the northern part of the Empire of Albion. Okay, so, and it says, I do solemnly declare, nope, not that part, excuse me. It says, it's provided always, and it is the true intent and meaning of this Congress that if a reconciliation between Great Britain and these colonies shall take place, and the latter be taken again under the protection and government of the Crown of Britain, this charter should be null and void, otherwise to remain firm and inviolable. So that means, based off of what I just said, Title 16, colon 1-28, saving the rights given by charters of Great Britain, and that's a common day statute that's and saved from repeal in New Jersey, which means this is still Great Britain. You're not in so-called United States. You're underneath the United Colonies, which are doing business in the realm of doing business in the realm of the Kingdom of England. Let me repeat, the fact that there was a reconciliation, because Title 16, 1:28 says saving of rights given by charters or granted by charters of Great Britain. And I just told you Great Britain was utilizing all of the rights of the English people, or the kings of England. This wasn't England that was making these moves. This was Great Britain, i.e. Roman Catholic, doing all this cozy. So that reconciliation took place. All right. So that means now, based off of that information, based off of the information I presented to you as showing you who the real true Anglo-Saxons are, who are you and I. We're just going to go ahead and verify how is that the case based off of looking up your name. When you look up some of the most common names I know for melanated people over here, Brown, there you go. Has a coat of arms, Brown history, family crest, coats of arms. The Brown family is thought to be Norman origins. It comes from an early member of the family who was a person who had brown hair, brown eyes, or dressed habitually in brown. The name springs from similar roots in Old English, Norse, Old French, Old German. It is possible it is given instance of a name derived from a short form of Old English personal name, such as Brunwyn or the Brungar. All right. Now, we just read already where they told you the term Brun, or whenever you see it utilized in English during Anglo-Saxon time, it was a representation of the complexion of the people. All right. So it says surname Brown was first found in Cumberland, where the Brown family held a family seat and claimed descent from LeBron. That's almost saying LeBron. LeBron means the Brown. So LeBron James, your name means the Brown James or the Brown whatever. I can't remember what James means right now. Actually, I'll go look it up. But that's what LeBron's name means. It means the Brown. All right. So LeBron in Normandy was granted many estates very soon after the conquest. However, many of the family renamed to Normandy, where Gilbert and William LeBron were listed in 1185 according to the Magni Rotuli Scacari Normaniae. This ancient and widespreading name, which occurs in early writings in a great variety of forms, LeBron, DeBron, Brown, Braun, Braun, blah, 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 stands on a battle roll and has the peculiar distinction of having produced 21 different families in the United Kingdom who have received from the sovereign hereditary titles of nobility. So as you can see, Brown is a hereditary title of nobility. For my brothers and sisters who have that Brown surname, who are better to pay attention to what I'm saying. You need to come back home, and the only way this information is going to be applicable is underneath the kingdom that you come from, which is the Kingdom of England. All right, let's go to another surname, Black. There you go. Black has a family crest as well. The origins of the Black surname date from the ancient Anglo-Saxon culture of Britain. So once again, my brothers and sisters who call themselves Black or whatever, or have the Black surname, you're descendants of the Anglo-Saxons, which means you are who your foremothers and forefathers were without doubt or contradiction. So that means you're still the Anglo-Saxons. You're not so-called Cherokee, Chickasaw, Seminole, all of that. That those are new so-called names that they created afterwards. And then on top of that, look at the language that they're writing it in. They're writing it all utilizing your script. Don't let these people confuse you. You can't come, if you were always Anglo-Saxon in the ancient time, which I'm showing you, which we prove via DNA, then that's only who you can be. And I'm showing you today that that's where your law, your legislation on your rights and powers of protection is secured under. It's not secured underneath all these new identities after your family fell. All of our family failed. Remember, we lost our nationality. And it wasn't just one nation that lost its nationality. Everyone who was underneath that so-called description, all those Berbers who was from different kingdoms throughout the world, who end up getting sold over here. And then the ones that I can only speak for right now is those who goes back to the Kingdom of England or the Empire of Albion. And the Empire of Albion equals England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, whatever. As well, you can go ahead and say America, because America is underneath the Empire of Albion. All right. America is part of Albion. So like I said, it's an empire. Okay. It says, the name Black may have referred to someone with the name originated with an early member who was a person associated with the color black. The name Black may have referred to someone with black hair or clothing, or to someone who worked in a profession such as chimney sweeping, which left its practitioners covered in soot. The surname Black was first found in Lincolnshire, where they held a family seat from very ancient times, some say well before the Norman conquest and the arrival of Duke William and Hastings in 1066. That's William the Conqueror. It is said that the first family of Black were converted to Christianity by Paulinus, the head of the family being prefect of Lincoln about 628. They moved northward, however, and were well established in Scotland by 1175 AD. So the Christianity they're speaking about is this Roman Catholic Christianity, because the true Christianity, or the followers of Christ, which is the key role, is the Anglo-Saxon Berbers, who are following the key role, or the Messiah, who at that time was King Edgar the Peaceful. And remember that key role energy, it comes back. Like I said, it reincarnates, and it normally reincarnates every 1,000 years. Okay, so Black spellings. The English language only became standardized in the last few centuries. Therefore, spelling variations are common among early Anglo-Saxon names. So like I said, your surname could be spelled many different ways. It's based off of how it sounds. And so they wrote it how it sounded to them. Okay. And you can check the rest of it out for your own. You know, look up your surname. This is how you're going to find your way back. You have to use what you were born with. I repeat, you have to use what you were born with. Okay. Let's go ahead and talk about royal Anglo-Saxon royal genealogies. Now, this is for my Bible buffs, because everybody who speak about the Bible need to know that it was talking about the Anglo-Saxons. Now, it was shrouded in secrecy. If you know what you're looking at, and what I'm showing you, you should know that the whole Bible is technically talking about a people who were actually placed in bondage, who forgot or was going to forget who they were. And these people was the Anglo-Saxons, or the English people. Clearly, no one has told you who you were until this day and time now. And when I mean who told you who you are, I mean telling you who you are from your true nation via your surname that you're born with the laws that you can verify with yourself, with the so-called DNA that you say that you respect, as well from the scholars who is an anthropologist and who have the credentials in the world that you still live and support. So these people are all telling you who you are, and no one who looked like you besides now, like the scriptures told you, is going to be at the end of an age that this revealing was going to happen. This is called revelations. And once revelations happen, it was going to be an exodus. And the exodus is going to be coming out of her, my people, which means you have to come out of that fictitious world, that corporation, and come back home into the kingdom, which is the kingdom of heaven, because you're fallen angels, fallen Anglo-Saxon Berbers, or fallen English people. And the main one who is fallen is the woman. Yes. The Anglo-Saxon Berber woman, she's the one who's the most lost. She's the one who's in this hell the most, because hell is the chamber underneath it's the ex-changer's chamber underneath the king's bench, under the House of Lords. So for you to get out of hell, you had to rise up. You had to come through the king's bench to get up to the House of Lords. That's why we have King Edgar the Peaceful, who's standing right there on what? Over top of the exchequer's chamber. And today the exchequer's chamber is where the debtors of the king dwell. Everyone today who have a so-called birth certificate, who utilize Federal Reserve notes, fiat, they're debt notes. You don't have true money, you have debt. Debt equates to debtor's prison. As long as you're in debtor's prison, you're in hell. As long as you're in hell, you can never see the kingdom of heaven. And the debtor's prison is for all of those who went against the king. As we see today, our brothers and sisters who don't want to know or understand or comprehend this information, they're living in lawlessness. They don't have any true inclination to honoring their foremothers and forefathers. It's all about me, 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 me. It's this individual reality. It's about, I'm going out here and get the so-called bag, or I want to live in this corporate world. They forgot all about the family, forgot all about the group, forgot all about their true identity. So they're going away from the source, because eventually the source can close off its energy and you'll be lost. You'll never find your way back. And that's what's going on today. The further you go away from the source, the further in damnation you will be. And like we already said, we come for our own, but they receive us not. So let me go ahead and read what this says. It says a number of royal genealogies of the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, collectively referred to as the Anglo-Saxon royal genealogies, have been preserved in a manuscript tradition based in the 8th to 10th centuries. The genealogies trace the succession of the early Anglo-Saxon kings back to the semi-legendary kings of the Anglo-Saxon settlement of Britain, notably named as Hengist and Horsa in Bede's Historia Ecclesiastica Genesis Anaclarum, and further to legendary kings and heroes of the pre-migration period, usually including an eponymous ancestor of the respective lineage and converging on Woden. Now, like I told you before, Woden is who they call God. Woden is Odin. So Woden, Odin, God Odin, that's where you get the name God truly comes from. It really means Odin, going back to the Odin or Woden. And their fully elaborated forms as preserved in the Anglo-Saxon chronicles and the Textus Orofensis, they continue the pedigrees back to the biblical patriarchs Noah and Adam. You hear this? So the Anglo-Saxon kings, or the descendants of the Anglo-Saxons, can be traced all the way back to the patriarchs Noah and Adam. Now, we here at the King's Bench know that a lot of that stuff is abstract, but we're going to go ahead and play with it for the sake of explanation. Now, if the Anglo-Saxons lineage can be traced back to so-called Noah and Adam, that means that everything that Adam and Noah descendants have, or Adam and Noah was guaranteed, their descendants are guaranteed. Therefore, for you to even to inherit what they were supposed to inherit, you have to be who? The descendants of the Anglo-Saxons, i.e. you must be the Anglo-Saxon Berbers today. And we already proven telling you who they were or are. Okay. And now another name too, I should have said this, another name for Odin is Wotan. So Odin, now you have Woden, W-O-D-E-N, Odin, O-D-E-N, O-D-I-N, and Wotan, W-O-T-A-N. And the beautiful part about that Wotan is going to show you exactly how the descendants of Odin or God look. Go back to the crest or house of names. Wotan. And let's look and see what's the face. There you go. And remember, X marks the spot. X means key. X means key. All right. So it says Wotan is the name whose history is connected to the ancient Anglo-Saxon tribes of Britain. The name is derived from when the Wotan family once lived in the county of Kent. Their name, however, is derived from the Old English words wudu, meaning wood, and tun. Now, remember, we already told y'all what they say tun could also mean dark. But here they're going to say meaning enclosure or settlement, and indicates that the original bearer of the name lived in the town by a wood. Besides parishes in many counties, there are innumerable manors, hamlets, and single houses in England, so-called. The word is Anglo-Saxon and signifies the woody enclosure. So, Wotan, another name for Odin. X marks the spot, which is the key, and it's showing you the descendants or the complexion of those folks. There you go, so-called dark black. All right, and we ain't got to read all this. Okay, and I got other stuff I wanted to show, but you know it's not really important because you kind of get the point. And just go back. And the last point, the Negro Law, South Carolina. I'm just gonna keep showing a lot of this. I'm gonna keep showing you until you get it until y'all download this and get it into your dial plate. You have to understand who you are. Like those days of just, oh yeah, I heard somebody say that's who we were. Just turn up. You can't keep doing that. Those days are over. You're now going to be held accountable for all of your actions. That grace period of ignorance is over. Doing what you were doing for the last 300-400 years, now you have to be judged for that. And the judges today are the descendants of the Kingdom of England, because we're bringing you this information regarding who you are. And if you refuse to be who you truly are, then what comes your way based off of the consequences of not accepting who you are is your own fault. Like I said, we bring you to the water, we can't make you drink. Every man and woman must carry their own cross. And like we said, or even like so-called scriptures or the Holy Quran, All of those doctrines says that majority of the people who in hell are women. Look who's going out here and try to work in this corporate world. Look who out here who's trying to start businesses. Look who out here trying to get the bag. Majority, look who's breaking away a lot of their families so they can focus on themselves. Hey, I'm not making this up. Look in your reality. Okay, so let's go ahead and read and check this out. And point of interest before I go into this, partu sequitur voluntatem. And that means that the child takes the status of its mother. If the mother is a slave, the child is a slave. And all of the women were put in, all of the Berber women were put in bondage. And just by saying, now you know that you're English descendants, just by saying that you just who you are is not going to free you. You have to come back into the church. That's your salvation. Salvation is in the temple, not outside. It's inside. All right. So let me go ahead and get this started. All right. Section 1, the Act of 1740. Now, remember, this is way before the so-called Declaration of Independence. All right. Before y'all had all those so-called bougie treaties from the so-called United States, all those other nations. You had this. And underneath this Negro Law, South Carolina, this was passed throughout the colonies. All right. So Section 1, Act of 1740, Section 1 declares all Negroes and Indians, free Indians in amity with this government, Negroes, mulattoes, and mestizos who are now free accepted to be slaves. The offspring to follow the condition of the mother, that partu sequitur voluntatem, and that such slaves are chattels personnel. All right. And then we're going to go to the main focus point. Section 4, the term Negro is confined to slave Africans, the ancient Berbers, and their descendants. So they just told you from up Section 1, they declare all the Negroes to be slaves and follow the condition of the mother. So that meant that all of the Negroes who are considered slaves are ancient Berbers, and all of their children are Berbers, and all of them are under condition of chattel personnel as slaves. So only way for them to get up out of this is by them remembering first who they are, because it's going to be steps. Like I said, it wasn't overnight that you failed, and it ain't going to be overnight that you're going to rise. But just based off of hearing this information and seeing it is now going to start helping create the reality that you need so you can start coming up out of there. And I'm going to tell you now, it ain't going to be easy and it ain't going to be pretty, because a lot of brothers and sisters want to stay in hell. Yes, a lot of brothers and sisters wants to stay in hell. The illusion is more comfortable than the truth sometimes. And that's the reason why they rather, instead of hearing us, stepping into their proper status and doing the obligation that it requires for you to be your true self today, so that way you can live on this earthly plane, so that way you can save your other brothers and sisters, and not only that, and save the planet. The planet need us to come back. The world need us to come back. Shoot, so-called Americans, the only way for them to be rooted, it requires the English people to be here. Without us, we can't use what we have for our posterity to survive. Therefore, everybody suffer. The whole world just shuts off. So we don't need everyone. We only need just one. The king is back. But it's for all of us. For those who recognize who they are, who want to do this work, who are ready to put their petty differences to the side, and start doing the great work. And it's not even that hard. You just have to be willing to put your own selfish goals to the side, because you start realizing after you come onto this path that was nothing more than an illusion to keep you from actually finding the truth of who you are. Because at the end of the day, when the music stops, and you better be in some chair and you still standing up, you get pulled off the stage. So with that being said, I'm Archbishop Belmont from the Noble House, or Illustrious House of Belmont, from the King's Bench, as well as the Third Temple English Church, that's headed by our great King of Peace, King Clifford Jefferson, as me and our CA, Noble Murphy from the House of Murphy, help do this great work to assist our lost brothers and sisters who don't know who they are, who feel that they know who they are. They know this is who they are, but they haven't started building the confidence to accept it and step into that role. And like I said, it's going to be uncomfortable at first, but the minute you accept it and embrace it, it's going to feel like cool runnings. So with that said, peace.